And welcome everyone to our interview with the lovely and knowledgeable educational leader, Sam Malone.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you again for joining us. Now, before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that I am interviewing on Gadigal land today. Do you know what land you're on?
I am residing on Darkinjung land today.
Beautiful. So, Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've worked in the early childhood education and care sector since I was 18, so for 14 years now, and I've held roles in long day care, preschools, outside of school hours care, and now family daycare.
Wonderful. A lot of places to grab knowledge from the sector that you can
Yes,
put to your role
absolutely.
now.
Yes.
So let's begin. So it can be tricky to know where to start when it does come to the planning cycle. How do you support your educators to decide how to document and plan for children's learning?
So I support our educators primarily by ensuring that they're confident in their decisions and in their knowledge. I find that a lot of our educators are fantastic at extending children's learning throughout the day and in the moment. And then when it comes time to sit down and document this, they feel less confident. So I have been working with them to find their strengths and figure out what works best for them. If it's a mix of, paper programs, apps, journals, floor books, whatever works for them, so they feel confident. I feel they thrive when they are, feeling that they're doing it properly. And I really love working with them to discover their strengths. And again, family daycare is quite autonomous, so we need them to really feel like they know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And our educators are fantastic, so I feel like they've got that down pat.
Absolutely. I really love that you've also taken a strength-based approach here. It is easy to get bogged down with the paperwork and the templates and the checklists, but I think you've listed a really good variety of ways to document that also play to your educator strengths.
Absolutely. And I really encourage them to collaborate both with myself and other members of the coordination team and with other educators. We've got a few online groups that we use. So there's often questions being asked on what people use to program and giving examples of what that looks like for them as well, which is really, really helpful, I feel. And I feel like we're still learning. But I think COVID really threw that at everyone, and everyone just had to get on board really quickly. So that was one good thing.
So roughly how many educators do you have under your wing?
I think we've got about 120, 130, and we span a big area of New South Wales. So we've really got to make sure that we're really inclusive of everyone. And we've obviously got regional coordinators that look after their areas, but yeah, we're quite big. So we're very aware of how diverse everyone is and how we need to be so inclusive and cater to all of our wonderful educators.
Yeah, that's excellent. And are there many on your team that do cover those 120
Yes,
educators?
yes. So we've got a fair few coordinators, and our coordination unit is fantastic. We've got people that work from home and then do overnight stays when they visit our regional communities and areas, and they do so much driving. They're so amazing.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
How do you ensure that every educator's program does reflect the service philosophy and is implemented and reflected on as a continuing cycle of learning and teaching?
So each of our educators, they've got their own individual service philosophy, which is the why behind what they do. And I encourage our educators to look at this when they're planning their planned experiences in the program, and ask, what, and it does show what we do and why we do it. It's the why. As a scheme, we actually critically reflected on our philosophy over the last few months. We found it wasn't really where we wanted it to be. We wanted it to be more of a living document that was reflective of everyone. So we took to our educators, our families, our children, and the coordination unit and all the other stakeholders to really get their voices, and we rewrote it based on that. So that's actually come out this month, and we've dispersed it around all of our educators, and I really encourage them to look at it to make sure it aligns with the planned program. And it's a really good baseline to also sort of weave in amongst your program with the theorists and the principles and practices.
Absolutely. I love that you've just gone and redone your philosophy as well. You've identified the gap, that something's missing here, or we need to do this a little bit better. And I think what you said about making sure that it aligns with practice is really important, because I know that, if an authorised officer were to come into your service and you're doing something one way, however, your philosophy says you must be doing it this way, there's clearly a misalignment. So it is
Definitely.
one of our most important, guiding documents, really.
It really is. And I think people, I think maybe back when I first started, it was just something that you just sort of wrote out. But I think now that it's being reflected on so often, it's really, really important to make sure that, as you said, it does align. It's the why behind why we do what we do. So,
Absolutely. So there's 120 wonderful family daycare educators under your wing.
yeah.
What do you think is the most important aspect of your role when it comes to supporting them?
I think that exactly that support is probably the most important aspect. And as you know, it's a family daycare environment. It's not that centre-based environment where you can talk to your colleagues every day and bounce back ideas from them. So I really think that celebrating our educators and empowering them and showing off their strengths and showcasing them is really, really important. And as there is so many of us and we're so spread out, I think we've done that quite well as a scheme. We have, again, social media pages and things like that we share wonderful setups and achievements on, so that they can be recognised. So I think primarily support, empowerment, and recognising and celebrating our family daycare educators is one of the most important aspects of the role, definitely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think your point as well, that it can be a little bit isolating. You spread out over all of New South Wales. You do need to find ways to celebrate each other and make it feel meaningful despite not being there in person. So I love that you've taken that on in your role.
Absolutely. And I think because I've had that background in the other avenues of our sector, I've really recognised that it can be, quite isolating. And I'm always really surprised at how many educators don't feel that they're meeting, the quality frameworks and the elements. And then when I show them, the collaboration that you have with these families and these children is phenomenal. It's something that you don't get anywhere else. So I think really empowering them that they are actually already doing the things that they don't think they are is really important as well.
Absolutely. When you're by yourself, it's hard to think that what you do every day is above and beyond. But then when someone comes in and is like, wow, this is fantastic. You've done it.
Yeah,
It's a really empowering feeling.
definitely. And I think it's really important.
So can you describe how you lead the development and the delivery of the educational program, particularly in relation to the planning cycle?
So, as educational leader, I work with our educators to make sure they've got a really thorough understanding of what the programming cycle looks like in practice. We have had educators attend professional development sessions that have been phenomenal, but then they've come back to their own services feeling like they're not doing it quite right. So we sort of reflected, and with no one size fits all approach, as we spoke about before, we thought, what can we do to make sure educators are feeling like they're meeting these or exceeding these? So we sort of brought it back to the elements. We've worked with our educators to encourage them to check back against the elements and the language in them to really promote, professionalism, and again empowering them to make sure that they are making the right decisions. So I've asked them to have a look at 1.3.1 and say, okay, so can I show that each child's learning is being assessed? And it's part of an ongoing cycle. And then can I show that every family is being informed about the program, as in 1.3.3? Sorry, I forgot. But we really encourage that as standard practice now. So if you are feeling unsure, to look back at those elements within the quality framework and check your practices against them.
Absolutely. And I think there are so many resources and guidelines and frameworks to navigate through. So having a strong educational leader to lead you in that direction, to know what you're looking for, is really important here as well. So,
But I think I found really effective showing real world examples of what programs look like in different services, can really reassure educators that they're doing the same thing or different, but it's all being met. There's an ongoing cycle and all the documentation is there. So I think that's really reassuring as well if you can really break it down and show examples.
how do you lead continuous improvement in quality area one to drive practice change?
Personally, I provide access to professional development. So each month, I host a professional development webinar with the topic being something around maybe our monthly focus or things that I've picked up in discussions with educators that there might be a bit of confusion around. For example, the one that we did for September was on the upcoming legislative changes in October, really breaking them down. It was a really like dry sort of webinar, but really breaking them down and making sure that everyone knows what they're there for and what we're doing to make sure that we're meeting those legislative requirements. But I think providing that professional development every month and having it there to reflect back on, it's uploaded to social media channels, is a really, really important aspect of Quality Area 1. We also have, a space to promote and share perspectives from other educators, so promoting professional practices there. And I personally attend professional development that I then share with educators and the coordination unit to pass down to all of our educators. So I think we do it pretty well. We also share the self-assessment tool, the key improvements with our educators to get feedback and ideas on these. And we do that on a monthly basis to make sure that everyone's involved in the self-assessment tool as well. Yeah, I think we're most proud of our online group. So we've got an educator reference group and an engaging learning Facebook group that is attended to the engaging learning one by all of our educators. And that's really where it's like a professional space to collaborate and share ideas and discussions. So yeah.
Well done. I think that's really important that you look at your documentation so regularly, like you just mentioned, you look at your self-assessment monthly. I think that's also keeps the momentum going as well. And you use avenues like online, which is fantastic.
I also really sort of try to make sure that I'm available if an educator will call up or email or send a text with a question. I try to make sure that I'm readily available to be able to answer that, because sometimes if they're sitting there doing documentation, they've had that question, I want to be able to answer it before they then have to go on to something else and forget all about it. So
yeah. Absolutely. So another tip for anyone else watching today, any educational leaders, is replying in a timely manner. So
yes, and I know it can be super hard, but I think it's really important to be there for our educators.
Awesome. Great response there, Sam. Thank you. Can you describe the link between professional development plans, quality improvement, and professional learning at your service?
So each coordinator and educator within our service have their own professional development plans, and these are added to and updated regularly. Many of the goals that we have that are set on these development plans fit in alongside our self-assessment tool, which I did reference before, and the key improvements within these. They're a focus for educators and coordinators. We touch base on them every monthly visit and see where we're at with them and if anything needs changing. And I feel like they're a really great basis for critical reflection. And it's sort of a check-in to see that, educators are consistently upskilling and learning more to promote best outcomes for all of our children.
Absolutely. And is that a requirement to have professional development plans or a certain amount of PD within your sector?
It's definitely a requirement for the professional development plans. There's no real requirement for the professional development, webinars and things that are attended. It's just something that we feel if we've got monthly opportunities to do it, why not do it? And there's things that come up every single month.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of free things out there as well. Now, we know that critical reflection is an important aspect of the role. How do you lead critical reflection on learning frameworks to guide practice?
I personally encourage our educators to critically reflect on both of the frameworks by, again, investigating each element and seeing what it means to them and reflecting on whether that reflects their practice. If not, why not? And is there a different way to do it? Is there a different way to meet that element and that learning outcome? And if so, what are they? So that's how I encourage critical reflection primarily on those frameworks. We are really excited for the updated frameworks to come through in 2024. They've been introduced to our educators when they were released, and we do have a lot of educators that are currently using them. But we've got two upcoming professional development webinars for October, November, where we're breaking down what they mean for every educator that we've got. And that's going to be prior to the implementation in 2024. But we're very excited about it. I'm very excited about the new principles, particularly the collaborative leadership and the Indigenous perspectives, along with sustainability, because they actually align with our key improvements. So works really well for us.
Absolutely. It's exciting, isn't it?
It is, and I think that we're really due for an update, and the only way is up, really. I think it'll be a really, really good change to have these implemented going forward from 2024.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sam. I think this was really valuable for our current and perhaps even our future educational leaders to know. So, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Um, Not really. I just wanted to say that all the family daycare educators within our sector are phenomenal, and they deserve far more recognition than they get. And I'm so impressed and so proud to be working within the family daycare arm of our sector.